Hello everyone, this is RadTechShoe and I am very pleased to bring you this new rad review. I have been playing this game relentlessly for the last week in hopes that I would be able to finish it in a timely manner, and I did manage to get all the way through. This is a great game. I can't wait to get into it with you. I definitely would recommend this for other people, but we are going to be going through and I'm going to be giving you my overall review of Batman Arkham Knight for the PS4. So without further ado, we're going to get right down into it. I'm going to go over all 5 basic categories of story, combat, graphics and music, extra bonus mechanics, and bonus content. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into the review, and we'll start off with the opening story of the game and how everything flows in terms of the storyline. So right off the bat, you pick up where Arkham City left off. The Joker died at the end of Arkham City, so we are going to be burning his body, and that is going to set the stage for the rest of the storyline here in Arkham Knight. Afterwards, you see the game and the world in the first-person view of a police officer who's just having a lunch at a diner. Then all of a sudden, he gets approached by one of the patrons, and he's told to go confront this guy smoking over in the corner. And then all of a sudden, hell breaks loose, and we have no idea what's going on. Everything's going insane, and it looks to be just some type of monstrous nightmare. And no one knows what's going on. It's as if hell has been unleashed on Earth. And what's really happening is this is another one of the Scarecrow's toxins that is just causing chaos, and the Scarecrow issues a warning to the citizens of Gotham saying this is just a taste of what's to come, everyone needs to leave now. So the city evacuates, and the only people that remain behind are the thugs, criminals, and the crime lords who operate in the bowels of Gotham alone. Penguin, Two-Face, everyone, all the criminal masterminds, and all of Batman's greatest villains are here to try and take over Gotham, and it looks like there's only one person who can stop them all, the Caped Crusader, and this is where the story really starts to kick off and we get control of the legend himself, Batman. So we meet up with Commissioner Gordon over at Ace Chemicals in an attempt to stop Scarecrow from releasing his toxin all over Gotham. And here, Batman encounters the Arkham Knight, a mysterious figure who knows Batman and is out to kill him, wants revenge, wants nothing more than Batman's death. However, Scarecrow wants to make Batman suffer. And Batman has no idea who the Arkham Knight is, and we spend a great deal trying to figure it out. Anyway, deeper inside Ace Chemicals, Batman encounters Scarecrow and is about to capture him, and then Scarecrow pulls out his ace in the hole, and he mentions Barbara Gordon, Commissioner Gordon's daughter, who is Batman's assistant, aka Oracle, and is Batman's informant and his tech's assistant. While Batman is distracted trying to warn Oracle about the danger headed her way, Scarecrow uses this opportunity to escape and trap Batman inside the compound and trap him with a chemical toxin. And it is up to Batman to use these canisters to reduce the blast radius of the toxin so it won't infect the city. However, he is going to sacrifice his life. He is pretty much going to, end it right here and saying that this is goodbye. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, as he's unlocking the final 4th canister to save Gotham, something amazing happens. So at this point, I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? All of a sudden, it flashes back to Commissioner Gordon hanging out over with Batman, and Batman has apprehended some mysterious characters who have apparently received some of Joker's blood, and they are slowly becoming more and more like Joker. And there are 5 people in grand total. And 4 of them are accounted for here, with the 5th one being Batman himself. Batman is all too well aware of that the Joker's blood is inside him, and he knows it's only a matter of time before it takes effect on him and he becomes more and more like the Joker. Fast forward back to the present day, it turns out that the Joker is really nothing more than a manifestation of Batman's worst fears and imagination. A manifestation of the Joker's blood and the Scarecrow's toxins combining to create these hallucinations. Since he is obviously dead, he is not real, but he is inside Batman's mind now, and he is going to slowly try and influence Batman to become more and more volatile and just slowly try and take over until he has complete control of Batman himself. So Batman's in a race against time before he loses out to his worst fear of becoming the Joker. Once you escape, you inform Commissioner Gordon that his daughter's been kidnapped, and from then the world starts to slowly open up. You can undertake various side quests like taking out Two-Face's men who are robbing banks, and you'll eventually take on the bosses themselves if you progress each individual villain's storyline far enough. So there's Two-Face, you can take on the Penguin's forces and team up with, Dick Grayson, aka Nightwing, the first Robin that Batman ever had. You can team up with him, and then you can also take on a bunch of various Riddler challenges, such as all the racetracks that Riddler has hidden underneath Gotham. These racetracks can be very, very tough and tedious at times, especially this one right here. This is definitely the most difficult challenge I had, but once you're done with these, you actually help unlock keys. These keys are needed in order to save Catwoman. Catwoman has been abducted by the Riddler. She has this collar around the neck. You use keys to help unlock the collar. You need 9 keys. Once you get all the keys, the necklace will come off, Catwoman will be saved, and then you can go about your day. Now, please bear in mind that, Two-Face, Penguin, Riddler, and all this other stuff that I'm about to go through, this is all optional. You don't have to go through all this, but as you noticed, when I complete a challenge, you'll be given experience points, and these points help level up your armor, your Batmobile, your weapons, your gear. So it really is in your best interest to do these side missions and all these side storylines, because it makes Batman a lot more tougher and it helps you kick ass. And speaking of kicking ass, the next challenge we're about to go through implies that we gotta go around flying around Gotham and finding all these bodies that are hanging from walls and stuff like that, and we have to scan their bodies to identify who they are and where they're from, and try and figure out who the killer is to stop these killings from happening in the future. Another is that Azrael is back from Arkham City. He is willing to take up the mantle of Protector of Gotham, and he wants to replace Batman. Batman is not going to let him do so, so easily, and he sets up various challenges for Azrael to go through, and Azrael has to pretty much fulfill all these challenges without getting hit. But luckily, Azrael handles exactly like Batman. It's very simple to play as Azrael. If you're good with Batman, you'll be good with Azrael. He's really not that different at all. It just might look a little different at first because you're not used to playing with, him. But he's real easy to pick up. There are a bunch of firemen that are located around Gotham that are being held captive by a bunch of thugs. Make sure to save them whenever you come across them, although they're not all that important. However, Firefly is the one who's setting all the fires in Gotham. It's easy to take him out, and once you take him out, it's pretty simple, and it's kind of fun actually. You gotta use the Batmobile in order to defeat him though. On the military side, there is a lot going on. There are military checkpoints, there are fortified towers, there are mines, and there are armored vehicle transports carrying lieutenants and other HVTs. There is a lot of military targets going on. But when you take out the mines, the checkpoints, and the fortified towers, you will slowly but surely work your way towards Deathstroke. Deathstroke is the main villain for the military. At first it starts off as the Arkham Knight, but eventually the Arkham Knight will relinquish control, and Deathstroke right here will be your main objective for defeating military checkpoints. So like I said, the checkpoints, the towers, and the bombs planted around Gotham, once you wipe out all 3 of those objectives collectively together, you get 100% on all of them, then you can take on Deathstroke. Then and only then can you do that. However, you'll have to advance the storyline to make more and more of these targets appear so that you can eventually confront Deathstroke at the end of the game. So this is one that's you're gonna complete very late in this storyline. So literally, as you don't have to complete them all at once. You can go through the story bit by bit as you're chasing down the Arkham Knight and Scarecrow, trying to figure out what their game plan is, or trying to stop Scarecrow from unleashing all the toxin all over and figure out who the Arkham Knight is. That's really the main storyline here. So all the objectives, all the side storylines, they're optional, but it is in your best interest, since the more of those you get, the more experience Batman gets and the stronger he becomes, thus making the game much, much easier. So my overall score for the story is a 5 out of 5. I think it's an absolutely amazing story. I think the characters are very unique and fun. It's nothing original. All these characters were already brought in from the Batman universe, so it's nothing we haven't already expected, but there is a nice variety of characters. I enjoy playing with the Arkham Knight, and the fact that he is Batman's perfect, he's a perfect, opponent for Batman. And storyline wise, I'm not going to spoil who he is, but it makes sense, and it's the perfect opponent for Batman. So the story gets a 5 out of 5. I enjoyed it very much. And the characters were all very unique, especially the Joker and all of his witty snide remarks that he did throughout the storyline when he was talking to Batman from inside his head. So that's going to do it for the story in this game. Next, we're going to move on to the core combat mechanic and the other core mechanics of this game, and I will give you my honest opinion of them. The combat system in Arkham Knight is nothing new to the Arkham series. We played it in Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. I didn't play Arkham Origins, so I don't know if this combat system was used here, but it's exactly like I remember it. You can punch, you can counter, you can use your cloak to stun, you can do all sorts of kick-ass combos. Once you build up the combo meter, there's a variety of weapons. They introduced the beatdown mode, which once you cape stun someone with circle, you can essentially just unleash a flurry of punches and kicks, and just totally lay waste and build up your combo meter real fast. You can break bones. The physicality of Batman in this game has not diminished at all. It's a great feeling, and the only thing is there are times it can feel slightly unresponsive. It really can feel like Batman is not doing what I want him to do. You can also dodge repeated attacks, like right there with the knife attack, as long as you hold the counter or the triangle button and push away from the enemy. Batman will dodge every single strike with perfection, so long as you know what you're doing. So in reality, just button mashing square and triangle is not going to get you through here. You're going to have to be smart. You're going to have to know what to do, when to do it, and you plan things out. And jumping down is not always the best move. Sometimes you'll have to plan your strategies from above and use your gadgets and just, set ambushes, set traps, pick your spots. It's definitely in your best interest to be patient with the combat system. It can be frustrating and it does feel a little button mashy, but rest assured, if you're good and you're patient, you will definitely master the combat system in this game, and it will pay off dividends with a lot of ass kicking. If all-out brawls and melees are not your style, then there are stealth moves. The stealth takedown is a classic example. Batman is a master of stealth, sneaking up on his opponents and taking them out without raising any alarms, so long as no enemies don't visually see you. Once they do see you, however, you do have the chance to either grapple or throw a batarang or do something else, just execute one of the commands on screen and Batman will react accordingly, giving you time to either escape or just continue the assault and beat down your enemies relentlessly. But one of the best things that I remember from Arkham Asylum was hanging from gargoyles and and dropping down on enemies and pulling them back up to the rafters. It was one of my favorite moves, and it's back here. I just love it. It's just so cool. I just love this ability. It makes me feel like a total badass. But one of the best moves in this game by far are fear takedowns. Fear takedowns are unique. First, you have to build up your combo meter by doing a bunch of stealth takedowns. So take out a bunch of enemies, with your stealth takedowns, and you'll be able to execute a fear takedown. A fear takedown, you come up to a group of enemies, sneak up behind them, and then instead of doing a regular stealth takedown with triangle, perform a square, and you'll take out all of them, up to 5 enemies in rapid succession. It will raise alarms and notify enemies to your position, but it's a great method of dealing with groups of enemies, especially if you have the element of surprise, and especially if they're all armed. So the fear takedowns are a great way to eliminate groups of armed enemies in rapid succession with style. Not to mention, it feels even more badass finishing off a small fight with some kick-ass music that is signature iconic Batman, and it just feels so good to hear this music play after you win some badass fights. The next part of the combat system I'd like to go over is the Batmobile. The Batmobile is honestly a little overused in this game. It's really shoved down your throat a lot because there's a lot of enemy tanks and helicopters that you're going to have to fight, and the Batmobile is the only way to take them down. So the game really pushes the Batmobile in your face, and there's nothing you can do about it except go along with it. I'm not a fan of using the Batmobile. This isn't World of Tanks. This is Batman. I should be using more gadgets and tools and not just sheer raw destructive explosive power. So this is kind of a negative. Now when it comes to the tank battles themselves, for the most part they're pretty straightforward. You just blow up the tanks and move on. You use R2 to shoot your missiles. You use R1 to shoot enemy missiles out of the sky, and that's really it. And, you know, as you can tell, you're going to be taking on the Arkham Knight helicopter battle. You'll be taking him on later in the game as well, in multiple stages. The Arkham Knight is really a big pain in the ass to battle against, just simply because it takes place in these types of settings where you have to use the Batmobile in order to beat him, and not melee, and not, you know, use Batman's melee capabilities, which I do wish were used more often in this game during this type of a scenario, but there's nothing I can do about it except go along with it. I just think that the Batmobile, the tank battles against tanks, they can be very easy or extremely difficult. But the Batmobile tanks, I'm just not a big fan of it. I just felt like it took away from the cool Batman mystique, and, you know, it just did not feel like a Batman game. It just felt more like a blow the fuck out of everything in sight, you know, mini game. It felt like I was playing a mini game inside of a Batman game and not actually advancing the storyline. It just didn't feel rewarding or satisfying driving around in the Batmobile, shooting tanks and helicopters and shit. So this was kind of a negative. So to sum up the combat system, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. It would be a 5 out of 5 if the Batmobile combat were more fun and enjoyable and not as frequent. But since it's very frequent and it's frequently boring, I'm just not that into it. So the combat system gets a 4 out of 5. And now that we're done with talking about the combat system with Batman and the Batmobile, we're going to be moving on to the visual graphics and the audio of the game and how I feel about them. Now visually the game is rather pleasing. If you look around, you'll notice the colors are nice and bright, everything's well defined. It's not something that will blow you away, but at the same time it doesn't feel like it doesn't belong on the PS4 or an Xbox One. It definitely feels like it has a next-gen feel to it. The raindrops are easily visible, you know, they're well defined. It feels like, you know, this game has a lot to look at. You know, even when you're inspecting bodies, you can see the different layers of skin and muscle and bone and stuff like that. It is nice that they put so much effort into the detail of the games visually. It is definitely well noticed, and for some reason I just liked how this game looked. Some parts that were dark, and some parts that were bright and colorful, like when you're driving around on the street levels. You know, there's nice changes, you know. And detective mode, you know, you're going to spend a lot of time in detective mode. So when you're out of detective mode, you'll appreciate the visual aspects of the game a little bit more. The character models seem to be pretty nice and detailed. Facial expressions are good. And overall, the characters seem somewhat realistic. I'm not going to mistake them for actually being real and being like, oh, is this live action? No, it's nothing like that. But there's a lot of aspects about this game visually that I do like. And Batman, where are you going? No, that's not something you get to see, Batman. Sorry. So, moving on. So the cutscenes are also pretty good as well. Pretty detailed. You know, you can definitely tell the difference between the in-game animations and then cutscenes and stuff like that. And the transition between in-game animations and cutscene is pretty fluid, pretty swift. It's definitely a very well thought out. You know, the look of the game is very well thought out. I do appreciate how everything looks and the flow of everything, and the world seems to be alive at some point, and it's a great aspect. Now, in terms of audio, the soundtrack of the game isn't really all that remarkable. I didn't really notice it all that much, but one thing I did notice was the voices of the characters. It seems the voice actors definitely went the extra effort to make sure that they sounded real good. Two-Face and Penguin sound rather menacing. Ivy and Riddler, they sound alright, but really the stars are, the two main characters, Batman and the Joker. Their voices are definitely top notch, and I do appreciate the effort that Mark Hamill put into the Joker. The Joker's snide comments, off to the side when he's talking to Batman inside his own head, feel very refreshing and alive.
Oh, you're not still digging around for Ivy's ancient shrubbery, are you? It's over, Bats. Barbara's dead, Gotham's choking on Scarecrow's crazy juice, and your popularity's falling faster than the flying Graysons on Bring Your Kid to Work Day. There's nothing left to fight for.
So my visual and audio score, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. It doesn't really wow me in audio-wise. It's just I expect good voice acting, good looks, and the music really wasn't doing anything for me, so it gets a 3 out of 5. And now we're going to move on to the additional game mechanics that support the core game mechanics in this game. So first up, for the supporting mechanics, we're going to go through the items and have a look at what each of them do, and I'll give my opinion on which ones I like and don't like. The Batarang, it's simple, it's standard, you don't really need any explanation. The remote control Batarang, I didn't like because it's hard to control. It's useful for Riddler riddles, but other than the story mode where they force you to do it once or twice, it's not really all that great. I found it relatively pointless unless you're really into those Riddler challenges. The Disruptor is amazing. You can use it to disable sentry field of views, from any drones for like a limited time period, or you can disable enemy medics from healing and reviving teammates. They're bad guys, so that's very useful. The Bat Claw is pretty simple. Reach over and grab stuff. You can use it to disable an enemy and pull him and make the big guys stagger and swing around, and they'll lose their balance. And when their arms flail around, they'll hit the little guys, and it can disorient them as well. Smoke pellet, pretty simple. Throw it down on the ground, and you can go into detective mode and continue to fight while in the smoke while your enemies are choking, or you can use it to escape. The remote hacking device is very useful. You can use it to hack doors open, get in through security code passages, as well as, it's a nifty little toy. I really do like it. It's one of the ones you're going to be using the most in the game. So, then, it's very useful. I can't really say anything else about it. The remote Batmobile, control the Batmobile remotely. Pretty simple, straightforward. You're going to be doing this in story mode and in Riddler, side missions. The voice synthesizer is a lot of fun. It gives false commands to enemy soldiers that have headsets, as well as it helps give you the ability to access doors that require voice passwords. So it's pretty useful once you do get it, and it's a little fun, to create other people's voices and have them issue orders and confuse the hell out of your opponents and set them up for ambushes. The remote electrical charge. Discharge a ball of energy, shoot your opponents with it. It'll stun them and stagger them a little bit, and it can be used to turn on and off electrical devices and charge them, and it'll just open doors or activate certain machines that need charges or need to have charges removed. Explosive gel, great for blowing down walls to ambush enemies and damage them. Terrible to use in actual combat. I found this very pointless. It didn't do any damage to my opponents. All it did was just stagger them a little bit. The line launcher, good from getting from one side to the other, but I didn't use it all that much just because I was able to glide or use my R1 Bat Claw. It's really outclassed by the Bat Claw, I'm not gonna lie. There are a few areas where you have to use it, but other than that, it's pretty useless. Over here we can look at the main mission menu, where we can look at all the missions there are and how close we are to completion. So as you can see, I've completed just about everything there is except the question mark on the right. There's the Man-Bat, there's Two-Face, there's the Fireman, there's the Armored Transports, Lucius, there's Azrael, and right there's the there's Slade right there, Deathstroke. And right here's the Riddlers. The Riddler, look at, there's 243 riddles, and I only have 34 at this point. I didn't want to grind this out, so I was like, you know what, screw it, whatever. But this is a handy little menu. It allows you to keep track of what's active, what you're close to, because if you're close to an objective, like within 100 meters, it'll activate and say, oh, this objective over here is 140 meters away from you. You can go ahead and knock that out real quick. Over here we have AR challenges. I pretty much, aside from the ones right up top which taught me the basic movements and controls, I really ignored these. There's the Scarecrow Nightmares. I didn't do any of this. I didn't do any of this. You really don't have to do any of these. They're completely optional. You can ignore them and it won't impact you at all. I never found any purpose to doing any of that. It's, you know, I just don't see the point in any of these, to be perfectly honest. So other people might enjoy these, but for me, I just found them irrelevant. They're really irrelevant. They're unnecessary. But it's no surprise that you do have some features in this game that are irrelevant when there's so much freaking content. There's so much in this game, so of course you're going to have some things that are irrelevant. The last part of this mechanics I'm going to go over is the map. I know the map technically isn't a mechanic, but it is very useful nonetheless. It allows you to bookmark and set waypoints. Basically, you can push triangle and set your own custom waypoint, or if you encounter certain enemies that are glowing green, you can press triangle to interrogate them, and they are Riddler informants. They will tell you where all the riddles and stuff are. You're going to have to find a bunch of these guys to find all the riddle locations, but it's one great way of finding all the Riddler locations as well as orienting yourself, because Gotham City is fucking huge. And that's going to do it for the additional mechanics. I give the additional mechanics a 3 out of 5. There's nothing outstanding going on here with all the additional mechanics. This game is mostly about run around and use the combat mechanic, beat people up, and then drive around in the Batmobile. So it just gets a 3 out of 5 for additional mechanics. And now we're going to move on to the last category, which is bonus content. So Arkham Knight does actually have some good additional content, some DLC and stuff like that. However, most of it isn't available right now. There's the Season Pass, which for $40 you can get a bunch of DLC as it comes out over the next several months. And there's not much else going on right here. You know, you can get you can get some alternate skins and stuff like that. But also here in Arkham Episodes, that's definitely where you can get if you have the Harley Quinn story pack where you can actually play as Harley Quinn. I, as you can tell, haven't done that, but that's definitely something I'm going to be looking into. And as more DLC comes along, I'll do an eventual cumulative review of all the DLC as it comes out. I won't do like one little DLC video and then do it. I'll wait till a bunch of it comes out and I'll just do one big bulk DLC review. But yeah, there's not much. There's a lot of DLC. It's just not available right now. And the one other thing is the skins. So the last little bit of DLC that I can go over with are the new skins that Batman can get. I can have the original Batman costume that he had earlier, the worn and torn Batman costume that he had at the end of the game. I can have this one where it doesn't take any damage. And then there's the good old Adam West Batman costume that just no one could ever take seriously if they ever saw a Batman wear. And then there's the one on the far right, the futuristic one. That one I have currently equipped right now, and it's pretty cool looking. And it looks badass, I'd have to say. And that's gonna do it for the DLC and bonus content of this game. It gets a 4 out of 5. For offering a lot of content, just not offering it right now. We have to wait until more comes out, and that's kind of a deal breaker for me. So that's going to do it for my rad review. Overall, the Batman Arkham Knight gets a 19 out of 25. It is a pretty decent game. It's definitely not the best. I still prefer Arkham Asylum over this game, but it's in no means a bad game. It's got a few bad aspects about it, and that might deter people from enjoying it. But overall, it is a solid game. I would strongly advise people to definitely give it a try. Try, renting it or borrowing it from a friend or whatnot. Give it a shot. It's definitely not for everyone, but it's still a great game. And I definitely encourage you to try it out. So that's going to do it for my rad review of Batman the Arkham Knight. I hope you all enjoyed this rad review of mine. Please don't forget to like, favorite, subscribe, and I will see you guys all in my next video. This is RadTechShoe signing off.